My name is Joonseok. I'm from Ulsan, South Korea. Ulsan is the seventh largest city, but the most industrial city. Ulsan is the city of Hyundai. We have Hyundai motor car and Hyundai shipbuilding. And those two companies have big plants in their own industries in the world, the biggest plants. So both plants respectively hire about 30,000 to 40,000 workers.
And the Korean working class has been in a big struggle, first against the military dictatorship, and also against governments, even quote-unquote liberal governments that have attacked workers' rights.
Yes.
And what are the experiences of the Korean working class in your struggles?
The biggest change was happened in 1987. From July to July, August, and September. Within less than 3 months, there were more than 3,000 strikes, and around 1.2 million workers participated. At the time, the whole workforce in South Korea was 8 million. Especially the participants in the strikes were mostly the most important industries, the most important sectors. So the strike wave really changed the relationship between capitalists and workers. It was a real change, big change, and most of the strikes, more than 99% of the strikes were totally illegal, and the strike was really spontaneous from below. At the time, there was a Yellow Union National Center, so.
And the AFL-CIO was involved in Korea.
Maybe, yeah. The Yellow Union National Center was an instrument of military dictatorship, and the bosses. Yeah. So the workers fought against the bosses and the military dictatorship, and against the bureaucrats. So after the Great Strike Wave, the democratic trade unions, which was created in the 1987 strike waves, they gathered regionally or on the basis of industry, and then they made some solidarity organizations. So around 2 years later, there were about 12 regional solidarity organizations and 8 industrial organizations, solidarity organizations. And then they gathered nationally, and they established the National Center, Democratic Labor Unions National Center. It was Jeonnoyeop National Workers Council, something like that. It was really militant and revolutionary oriented unions.
And the KCTU, Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, called some general strikes.
Yes.
What were the lessons of those general strikes?
The KCTU was established in 1995, and in 1996 to 1997, there was a big general strike during 4 months against the labor reform based on neoliberalism. Actually, the general strike couldn't achieve victory because of the bureaucratic leadership. This is something that many foreign comrades haven't acknowledged. At the time, the KCTU, overall KCTU has very positive possibilities, especially from below. But the leadership level, there was already bureaucratic phenomenon. Conciliation currents were taking the leadership, so they tried to weaken power of strike. But several times, the workers from below changed their course against the leadership. Actually, the starting point of the general strike was the result of pressure, very strong pressure from below. Officially, it was announced by the leadership, but it was the last time that the workers from below can endure the avoidance of the leadership on the struggle, the general strike. Yeah.
And the Korean unions have engaged in major struggles against privatization, policies of the IMF, World Bank, United States. And they were successful in stopping the privatization of the Japanese railways. Their struggle now in Korea is that the Korean working class is facing a president, Yoon, who says he wants to exterminate the left unions in Korea. And there are many in jail in Korea. They're raiding unions. What is going on as far as a fight back and organizing the working class against this frontal attack?
I want to explain the real picture of Korean workers' movement. The side of other countries who have experienced a long time pressing, they would so...
You mean quiet
situations?
Quiet situation, yeah.
They would see Korean workers' movement has been great. I can agree in some aspects, but many Korean workers, ordinary workers, have thought that we have had more opportunities, but we can't have achieved our victory due to the betrayals of bureaucrats. So the history of Korean workers' movement has two aspects. Basically, the power from the below has been so powerful. So despite the betrayals of the bureaucrats, Korean workers' movement can have achieved a lot of things. They can have pivoted the railway and the power plants from privatizing, but in other aspects, there have been a lot of disappointment of rank and file ordinary workers. So it has caused the weakening of Korean workers' movement. At this moment, the right-wing Yoon government has been trying to attack Korean workers' movement, especially KCTU. So KCTU has organized several general strikes, but unfortunately, it was not general strikes, just the mosaic of industrial strike.
So they did not really want a general strike?
Yes, they are afraid of directly confronting right-wing government. Unfortunately, a month ago, the leadership of KCTU accepted the right-wing government's demand, which forced the KCTU and main unions to submit their financial report to the government. It was one of the most important attacks from the government, and the KCTU had announced we want to give up our independent right a lot of times, but they accepted the government's demand. It was unprecedented
capitulation.
Yeah, forgiveness.
Was there opposition in the KCTU to that capitulation?
Yes, there are some voices against the decision, even though there are a lot of elections in the KCTU, from the national leadership to the many local leadership. But we and other important organizations are organizing the opposition, and there are many criticism from below. But the accident showed the present situation of bureaucrat leadership, unfortunate bureaucrat leadership of KCTU.
And one of the issues, not just for Korea, but working class in the United States, many countries, Japan, is there's no mass working class political party.
Yeah.
What are the developments in Korea towards the formation of a mass working class political party for the unions and the working class?
In 1998 and in 2000, Democratic Labour Party was established, mainly driven by KCTU. It could be, its mother was the PT in Brazil. So it could have had the possibility of developing towards militant working class party, but at the time the drive force of the party was Social Democrats. So they drove the party to the later picture of PT or even the Labour in the UK. The Democratic Labour Party has fallen to the Social Democrats. Before that, the Democratic Labour Unionism or the KCTU have some difficulties to choose between supporting liberals or Democratic Party or abstention in politics. So the KCTU supported the DLP, Democratic Labour Party, officially, but the Democratic Labour Party failed. So in 2012, it was dissolved, and then nowadays split to three reformist parties.
Now, the United States has military bases in Korea and plays a big role in the Korean government. What's the relationship of the unions to the United States, Jeju Island, and now the plan of the United States and their actual organization of a military alliance between Japan, Korea, and the United States against China?
Basically, the KCTU has fought against American imperialism, and the existence of American military bases and extension of it officially, but unfortunately it has been something official one. Actually, it's not been supported by strong power from below. In other words, KCTU has failed to, as you mentioned, to educate their own workers in world views, not confined in economic demands. Unfortunately, KCTU has failed in that aspect. So KCTU has published a lot of statements and sometimes organized protests, but it has been small, very small, compared to its big power. For example, last weekend was a big march by KCTU in Seoul. Around 50,000 workers gathered. It was an annual march, annual gathering. In that protest, maybe it includes anti-imperialism demand, but actually it was not the focus. But I think we can develop a real anti-imperialist movement by workers in KCTU if we try to educate or organize debates with workers, but the bureaucratic leaders have not done that.
Why don't you talk about the growing repression of the Yoon government and the raids of unions in Korea, jailing, and where that's leading?
The Yoon government has detained hundreds of workers, but in Korea it is not new. Because when we established KCTU, in 1990s, there were around 1,000 workers arrested or detained every year. It was the average situation in South Korea's workers' movement. So, in some aspect, under the Yoon government, this government we came back to normal. Yeah, we came back normal. And the former government, Democratic Party government, the former government, actually there were less arrested unionists, but the former government also attacked workers' movement and workers' rights in a lot of aspects. But under the former government, there were big confusion of the nature of the government among the workers. So I think it was much more dangerous to the workers. But in this situation, the government are acting and showing their real nature. So I think it will help the waking up of many workers. Even though the bureaucrats are afraid of the attacks from government and they are avoiding the confrontation, but I believe that many ordinary workers have been angry about the government's attacks. So there have been accumulated some strong energy from below, and I think less than 1 or 2 years later, we will see some big struggles based on rank and file workers.
And what is the position of the KCTU to this military alliance between the United States, Japan, and Korea?
Yeah, basically, KCTU has opposed the military alliance between the US, Japan, and South Korea because it is deteriorating the situation in East Asia, and it is making the East Asia as one of the most dangerous region in the world. So opposing that and fighting against such alliance is the basic common sense, basic agreements in the workers' movement, democratic workers' movement in South Korea. I think the difference is the real to say and to act is different. Yeah, so the real problem is how to organize such struggles, how to organize the power of the workers, the strike against the military alliances. It is the real point.
And what was the relationship of the KCTU to the rest of the trade unions in the United States, the AFL-CIO and other unions, around this issue of the repression and militarization of Asia?
Actually, I have little information about that.
Is the KCTU organizing internationally against the militarization of Asia in the labor movement?
As far as I know, I don't think so. Because if KCTU would not believe that AFL-CIO can be in the same line with KCTU in fighting against the military alliance between US, Japan, and South Korea, and there are no national union centers in Japan also, which can in the same line with KCTU in that aspect. So in that aspect, I can understand the KCTU's difficulty, but in other aspects, it could mean the efficiency of the intention organizing international solidarity for fighting against military alliances.
And what is the role of AI, artificial intelligence, in Korea? Is that Korean workers face loss of jobs and marginalization?
AI, I don't think AI has already affected the Korean workers' jobs, but as for automation, it has affected very many Korean jobs. One of the most important instruments of the Korean capitalists against Korean workers' strikes has been automation. So the degree of factory automation in South Korea is the world first. It is the result of their strike wave, and the continuous militant workers' movement.
And Japan is bringing in more immigrant workers. In Korea, there are a large number of immigrant workers. The KCTU has been organizing them. They have a group. What's the role now of immigrant workers and their struggle in Korea?
From the mid 1990s, there have been employment of the EPS system, employment permission system. It allows migrant workers to work for around 5 years in South Korea, but workers have the right to move factories within only 3 times. And migrant workers have had to work in the most dangerous and difficult sectors. So there have been very accumulated pains in migrant workers in South Korea. And in 2003, there was a year-long sit-in protest by migrant workers in the center of Seoul, and the protests could change the government's policy a little, but the basic situation of migrant workers has not changed. And there are some unions in the KCTU which are organizing migrant workers, but many migrant workers has not been organized.
And China has the largest industrial working class in the world, next to Korea. The KCTU, the Korean unions, have tried to have relations with Chinese workers. What does the KCTU characterize the Chinese unions as, and what's going on with the Chinese working class from the point of view of Korean workers?
When the Chinese workers try to organize and establish independent unions, we heard that they learned about the history of Korean workers' movement, especially the Joon, they read the book of Joon, and they learned about the initial period of Korean workers' movement, which overcome the military dictatorship and established the independent unions national center. I think most of Korean workers in the KCTU acknowledged that China is not a socialist country. China is, as I said, China is a capitalist country with a Chinese characteristic. Korean workers have a potential solidarity consciousness with Chinese workers, and if Chinese workers start to erupt as independent force, I believe that Korean workers will really welcome, and go ahead with them.